Everybody loves it.
Coming from all
even the
places.
Pope.
I'm going to see it tonight, actually.
I'm going to see it tomorrow.
There you are.
Alpesh Patel from Fabian Partners is with us. When are you going to see Skyfall?
I took my parents to the IMAX on Sunday to see it on the really, really big screen.
Don't tell us the plot. There's a ban on revealing the plot.
Are you with the Vatican? You're a lover of the film?
I totally am, and why wouldn't I be?
It's had, well, some critics have said it's the best Bond film ever made.
Casino Royale.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That takes some beating, and of course that was the originally. Anyway, let's talk about the papers.
We'll do a review later.
This is not a movie
this conversation
show,
later.
okay.
It is brilliant. Okay, let's start with the International Herald Tribune. Pictures there of the changing landscape, not just of America itself after the storm, but the political landscape, I suppose, as well.
Yes, you know, if you're Mitt Romney, you have got to be absolutely furious, and I don't mean the human tragedy side and everything, the devastation and the cost and people being displaced and so on, but I mean you're looking at your opponent 24/7 on air, being able to look presidential. Your options are limited. I'll let you into a secret. That's not the real issue for the election. There's a newsletter I was reading just this morning from the Rothermere America Institute, run by Dr. Nigel Bowles, which really tells me the inside of what's going on. And this centre, sort of like a think tank out of Oxford University, it's going to be a split ticket. In other words, you're going to get a Republican House and Senate, and you're going to get a Democratic White House, pretty much, and this will be the nod. The real issue is going to be, how do you get the budget through? Because you're going to have a White House which is going to be very, very antagonized by Congress. They're not going to be best pleased that they've lost. The Republicans have lost, and they're going to try and humiliate the president, and that means that we're going to see more market volatility. That's really the big story with this election.
Also, as well, we don't know yet how much this is all going to cost. There's various figures being bandied around, but one of the things I was hearing was that some of these states that were worst hit, like New Jersey, for example, are looking to the federal government for 100% financial help. And this is going to be, you know, adding, isn't it, to the bulging debt pile in the United States, which, again, is the federal intervention to sort of get states back on their feet, which is kind of totally against what Mitt Romney's all about. He's all about, you know, helping yourself,
again,
federal government not being involved,
absolutely.
that kind of thing.
How do you square the circle when you're saying you need smaller government, which is the Republican tagline, and at the same time you're going to have to step in and say, well, actually, we're going to have a larger government to help people. The money they will find, because they actually have emergency reserves for things like this, but it makes it very difficult and complicated for Republicans, and they've got to be fuming.
So, some economic analysts, though, have been saying that this could actually turn things around because the people are going to get jobs because there's going to be construction projects. Those companies are going to get money from the insurance companies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people will make their homes and businesses even bigger. They'll make all those changes they wanted to make. So sometimes there is a silver lining to a...
There's a silver lining in the sense that, and the Americans are optimistic people, and of course, yes, it will help construction. It will most definitely, with the funds, federal funds going in. But again, plays into the Democrats' hands because they are looking for increased public spending. This gives them a good channel for that, and an area where they can't get complaints from the broader public.
Now, yeah, The Independent, Nightmare on Downing Street, and this is a headline about the vote that Cameron lost on Halloween by a margin of 13, and it's that old chestnut that the Conservatives can never sort of seem to get over: Europe.
No, I was in Parliament last night, and I've got to tell you, it was a buzzing place, and the newspapers have got it wrong. This is exactly what the Tories wanted. There wasn't a three-line whip saying to the Conservatives that you must absolutely vote in favour of the government. And the reason the Tories did not want to win this vote is because then they can go back to Europe and say, look, we don't have the backing for the kinds of budgetary increases that the other countries in the EU want. You'll have to allow us just to increase with inflation, which is what essentially the coalition, I should say, is going for. Because ironically, Labour is saying less spending. Bit late.
But for domestic politics, it's not good for David Cameron.
It is back to the days of John Major.
It shows he hasn't got, you know, the leadership. The opposition will just point to this and say, look, you know, he hasn't got the backing of his party.
It shows that journalists can make fun of things like this, because the reality is that he wouldn't have had such a strong hand if they said, yes, go ahead, go for the whole budgetary increase. Politically, it's better for him. If he wanted wanted the party in line with him, they would have just issued a 3-line whip. It's as simple as that, and they would have got it.
It could be worse for David Cameron. He could be the Prime Minister of Greece. Greece faces deeper recession, according to the Gulf News. Perhaps another sign that austerity measures aren't working, and a lot of people will be capitalising on that.
Again, I'm going to disagree with the papers again on this. I'm afraid.
Greece is okay?
You were in Parliament last night. You read that paper this morning about the US. So what about Greece?
I was in Greece. I was in Greece
3
weeks ago. In Greece, actually, what was striking was the number of paper receipts where people basically it was a cash economy, and I was shocked to the extent that was going on, more so than it goes on in India. I mean, actually, it was definitely far more prevalent in Greece, which shows you the problems they have. However, looking at the positive sides, they have got IMF backing, they've got EU backing. We're not getting the panics in the financial markets that we were seeing every single week 6 months ago, and the coalition's holding up. Don't forget, the left of the coalition had voted, I think it was yesterday, in favour of these austerity cuts.
But don't you think, though, as far as, you know, the markets and finance and that side of things, they kind of know this recession is going to be deeper. It's obvious, isn't it, that it's going to be worse than projections, given what they're going through?
You're absolutely right, and the most important thing for them is to have that happening as a negotiating tool to say to the Germans in particular, look, we are suffering the pain, give us the money. We are going through what you want, because that's actually what the rest of the EU wants to see. They want to see the Greeks going through the pain because it adds credibility when you're negotiating.
We've only got a couple of minutes left, and I want to talk about James Bond. But before we do that, let's talk,
We've done that already,
let's talk about another British icon, Richard Branson, investing in energy efficiency now.
Out in Russia, it ties in with the earlier story about espionage, because Richard Branson, he's a figurehead for a government role that I have, which is looking for technologies for something called the Global Entrepreneur Programme for the government, and he's a figurehead because this is what he does. He invests in these technologies, and we're looking to set them up in Britain. Well, the earlier story about espionage and the widening rules that the Russian government has as to what is espionage is actually, I think, targeting economic espionage, where people are looking to take away technology out of Russia. It's not about silencing dissent. We know that the Russian government can silence dissent. We've seen them do that. It's about trying to stop companies taking economic wealth out of the country. And Richard Branson's investments there is great for Russia. We're hoping these companies will set up in Britain.
Now, do you think if he was in a Bond film, Richard Branson, would he be the rich bad guy, or would he be James Bond?
He did a cameo in James
He was
Bond,
in Casino Royale. He was exactly at Miami Airport, getting patted down because they were using Virgin Airlines.
Fantastic,
I know my movie.
Product placement there. For the Virgin Group.
He's obviously the good guy. He's certainly the good guy for the campaign that the government's been running about Britain is great around the world, because he's one of the sort of rare figureheads that you have for entrepreneurship. So he'd most definitely be the good guy for attracting these technologies, and say sort of linking it back between Bond and this last story. I hope that we get these technologies in the United Kingdom.
You didn't get to say a word about Skyfall, Chris. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll talk more off air.
It's just a movie.
We will.
It's a great movie, though. Alpesh, many thanks. Alpesh Patel there. Thanks for joining us on BBC World News.
Bye-bye.